and for Matthew 17, verses 1 through 13. And after 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter and James and John, his brother, and led them up the high mountain apart. And he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his garments became white as light. And behold, there appeared to them Moses and Elijah taking with him. And Peter said to Jesus, Lord, it is well that we are here. If you wish, I will make 3 booths here, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah. He was still speaking when lo, a bright cloud overshadowed them, and a voice from the cloud said, This is my beloved Son, with whom I am well pleased. Listen to him. When the disciples heard this, they fell on their faces and were filled with awe. But Jesus came and touched them, saying, Rise, and have no fear. And when they lifted up their eyes, they saw no one, but only Jesus. And as they were coming down from the mountain, Jesus commanded them, Tell no one the vision, until the Son of Man is raised from the dead. And the disciples asked him, Then why do the scribes say that Elijah must come first? And he responded, Elijah does come, and he is to restore all things. But I tell you that Elijah has already come, and they did not know him, but did to him whatever they pleased. And also the Son of Man will suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he was speaking to them of John the Baptist. Friends, this is the word of the Lord. Oh, I wanted to read one more. I wanted to read Exodus 4:13. I did not read it way before. I put this in because this is a line that is so easily missed. I missed it for many years myself. Although I had read it, I didn't really see it, you know. So Moses is on the mount, and God tells him, I'm going to deliver the Israelites, going to bring them out of Egypt, you're going to do it, all that kind of stuff. But in chapter 4:13, Moses responds to the Lord. But he said, O Lord, I pray, send somebody else. Boy, what a leader. It was 1953. A New Zealander named Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay, his Nepal Sherpa climber, climbed to the top of the tallest mountain in the world, 29,029 feet, 5.5 miles straight up Mount Everest. They reached the summit at 11:30 a.m. local time on the 29th of May, 1953. And they paused at the summit to take photographs, and they buried a few sweets there and a small cross in the snow before descending. You know, that climb by Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay made worldwide news. Every newspaper in the world printed it at that time. They got to that high place that no one had ever been before. You know, a place that a lot of us, when we're flying in a jet aircraft, may only be about that high. Just knowing that they made it brought the world great hope and joy. People have always been fascinated by getting to the high place. You know, climbing that mountain, scaling, that high place, that incredible dream, that sort of thing. Maybe part of this is that when we get to the high place, we seem a little closer to God. I love the film Armageddon with Bruce Willis. Have you ever seen that thing? It's a great film, I like the Die Hard films too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, I don't know. But I know he's up there, he's on the asteroid coming to destroy the Earth. It's got knocked out of its orbit, it's coming to the Earth, and things are going really bad. I mean, they're really bad. And Bruce goes, oh God, just a little help, please. And the other guy who hears him says, I think he might have heard you from here. At that critical moment in Jesus' life and ministry, he goes to the mountain to pray. We call it the Mount of Transfiguration. I think that it's probably the same mountain I was on when I was on a trip to Israel, and it overlooks the Mediterranean Sea, and it's a beautiful place. And at the time that Jesus would have been there, they wouldn't have had the ambient light that we have around the world today. So they would have seen the Milky Way just as clear as if you went out west somewhere where there's no light and you just see trillions of stars. And they just cover the sky like a blanket. It's beautiful. If you've never seen Milky Way, I encourage you on one of your trips, go to a really dark place and see it. Sometimes you can go down to West Virginia. I was down in West Virginia one time fishing, down on the Cranberry River. And the mountains go up from the river. I mean, they're almost like this. I see bear every time I go there. And it's really a wilderness place. And there's so little light that gets down in that valley that you can see the Milky Way. And it is extraordinary. Also, you better darn well take a flashlight. Can't see a darn thing down there. So, Jesus goes to the mountain. And he's coming to the end of his ministry. He goes there to get clarity. And most of all, he goes to get support for the journey that's ahead of him. And I suppose that, like Jesus, you need to go to the mountain different times in your life. There are times that you need to go, but maybe you passed on it. I'm too busy. I can't take the time. I have too much responsibility. People need me. It's too expensive, And there's always the best one. I'm just too tired. I can't go. It's hard. Well, sometimes just getting to the base of the mountain is kind of tough. Jesus could not do this ministry alone. He has the 12 disciples. He has friends like Lazarus, Mary, Martha, and that sort of thing. But God sends him a little help just when he needs it. And I think God does the same things for us. Times that we really need help, we really need support, we really need a little love. We need that little pat on the back. God sends someone. And God sends Elijah and Moses that night on the mountain. Elijah, they say, represents all the prophets, all that stuff. And Moses represents all the law. Sometimes in life, it is easy to think, I'm all alone. Nobody cares. All is lost. But God sends people. The truth is that we're never alone. The Lord has all kind of people out there waiting in the wings to help us. And I've always said this to young people, so young people who are sleeping out there right now, better listen. You never know how many people are just waiting in the wings, just off stage, where you can't see them, to help you if you just reach out to them. And for us older people, too, there are always people that God has in the wings as well. Just never know. And sometimes you got to have the strength to reach out, take their hand. Sometimes we don't want to do that. Oh, I don't want to bother. Oh, I can't do that. Whatever. And so Jesus, he has people helping him on that night on the mountain. You're not alone. God always sends people. The Lord has all kind of people out there waiting, ready to help us. For he said, I will never leave you, nor I will forsake you. More than that, he said that he will provide all that you need at the right time. There are times in our own lives that we need to hear that again and again. And so did Jesus. And I've always told my congregations that Jesus was just like us. When he came, was born as a little baby, the incarnation, that he emptied himself of all of his glory, and he became just like you and me. He got tired. He was hungry. He got scared. He fell down, got road rash, just like all of us, And he felt pain. And sometimes he needed to be loved and held. And also the reassurance that you're on the right road. You're on the right road. It's nothing like knowing that you're on the right road, And if you're not on the right road, the person next to you on the front seat will tell you. So he goes to the high place, to the mountain. It's nice to know you're on the right road. I'll tell you what, when those GPS things came out, I've had one ever since. Recalculate, yes. Go down this deer track, yeah. The high places, the mountains, have been talked about many times in the Bible, and they're very important. In the book of Exodus, God meets Moses in the burning bush on the mountain. Moses then leads the Israelite people out of Egypt into the Sinai, and then to the base of that very same mountain. Elijah the prophet has a great battle with the prophets of Baal on top of Mount Carmel. That's where they believe that Jesus was transfigured. Jesus goes to the mountain, and when his ministry has hit that critical point, what do I do next? Where do I go from here? Oh, God, help me. Being on the mountain, can have a powerful effect on our lives. That's why we say from time to time, I had a mountaintop experience with God. When I was at a convention or a camp or a church revival, I went to the mountain. We didn't literally go to the mountaintop, but we had that rare experience, the powerful God. Now, one of the problems of going to the mountain also is this: you got to come down from the mountain. Peter, he wanted to stay up there. And Jesus leads him back down. In Matthew 17, we come to the famous time in Jesus' life. It's the time just before he walks to Jerusalem and to the cross. And as he is about to do this very, very hard thing, to die for the sins of the world. And I know that from time to time, when life is hard for me, God sends me something or someone to help me, to encourage me to find the strength to carry on, or to, start a new chapter in my life. And I've had to start new chapters in my life for sure, that sort of thing. And there are those moments that I want to give up, but God is there. There are times that life gets hard, that the worry, the strain, the distress is just too much for us, and God enters the picture. God uses all kinds of people at these times. I like watching YouTube, probably too much. I think that older men like watching YouTube. They have attention span that's very short. And so you okay back there? I think organists have longer attention spans. But you get these golden things just every 5 minutes is really cool. But I was watching Vince Gill, and I think it was Patty Loveless, and they sang "Go High on That Mountain." If you ever heard it, you should see it. Go High on the Mountain. Vince Gill wrote it. His brother had a hard life. I think drugs and all kinds of other terrible things. And he passed away. And Vince Gill wrote this song, "Go High on the Mountain." And it goes something like, go high on that mountain. Son, your work on earth, son. Only you knew the trouble. And a couple other lines that says, only you knew the pain. Only you knew the rain. And it's a beautiful song, and he sang it at George Jones' funeral as well. And it's been sung at thousands and thousands of funerals around our country. So I encourage you to do it. But that he goes up to the mountain finally after his work is done, with joy and a shout to the Father and to the Son. Well, God uses all kind of people to help us. As you're going about your prayer life, ask God to lead you to those people who are the people you need in that situation. Sometimes you're so far down that you need to hear an encouraging word from the Lord, from a person. Don't be afraid to say those biblical words. There is strength, there is healing, there's power in the words of prayer. Let the Lord use you. And you never know the fantastic things the Lord will lead you into and will do with you, and he'll let you do. Matthew records the story simply. After 6 days, Jesus took with him Peter, James, and John, and led them up a high mountain by themselves. Now, Jesus needed to be alone. And when he was troubled, when he was tired of people and the ministry, he got tired of people, all right? When he needed to pray, he went up the hills and the mountains. It doesn't say it in the Bible, but I can see the disciples doing this as they go into the ministry after the resurrection, going away for a time, a precious thing, especially when they needed to hear from God. And they climbed the mountain and something happened there on the mountain. And it says Jesus was transformed in front of them, as white as light. And there on the mountain, God sends Moses and Elijah to speak with Jesus. And it's funny that people ask ministers from time to time, when I go to heaven, will I know other people? And I say, well, all I can tell you is that on that night that Moses and Elijah appeared to Jesus, the disciples had instant recognition who they were, even though they'd never seen them. Of course, they might have used the trick that I use so often. I let somebody else say their name first. So I don't have to admit I forgot their name. Well, the gospel writer does not record what they talked about, except it was about his departure to Jerusalem. Maybe Jesus needed a little reassurance. Maybe he needed someone to talk to who really understood. Maybe he just needed a little support, a little love, a little pat on the back. That's what happens sometimes on the mountain. Jesus needed the support of his best friends. He would need them to understand later all that had happened. And often when we go to the high place, we take a few friends with us. It helps. And Jesus sets out with a new renewal that disciples cannot understand. They do not want him to go to Jerusalem because they know that the cross is waiting there. And Jesus goes even though he is afraid, even though he is worried about his friends, even though he knows that he is going to experience loneliness and pain in a way that he has never known it before. And the worst of all, he knows that the separation of death. But going to the high place, praying, being with friends, gives him courage to go on. Well, what about us? Have you ever spent a little time on the high place, seeking out the will of God? Maybe going with your friends. There are times you just need to go. Seek God. And the neat thing is most people, prophets, leaders, have done this and come away, done extraordinary things. And I encourage you to make plans every now and then to go to the mount, leave everything behind, seek God. Most of us, it changes our lives forever. Let's pray. Father, lead us on to the mountain that we may find rest and peace and encouragement, strength in so many ways. And we give you thanks, O Lord. We praise your great and wonderful name. Amen.